We always say seat time is king, so sit on down and listen in to Motorsports Tech Talk with your hosts, Brian and Eric. Eric, how's it going?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good. The race season keeps approaching faster and faster, it seems like every week, which is good,
Yeah.
but maybe also not good when there's a lot of stuff left to do in the car. But, you know, all the major essential stuff on the Miata is done. It's more the goodies that I want to add to it, so
Right.
I can always hold off on certain things until the next race. But yeah, I'm gonna have to kick it up a gear in the next couple in the next 2 weeks. But
Yeah, I got to get your shit together.
yeah, I do. That I do. And then I gotta shake off all that rust from the off season, which kind of is what inspired today's episode. We wanted to kind of talk about things we learned in the off season that can help try to keep our tools sharp, at least from a driving and racing standpoint.
Yeah, or at least things you can do in the off season, right? But
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So
I mean, getting started with the most direct thing, or maybe the most common. We'll start that way. The most common thing I've seen that people try and do to stay quote unquote sharp in the off season is to do some sim racing, right?
mm-hmm.
I think iRacing is probably the most popular. You have iRacing, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've mentioned it before that you recently built a sim ring. Tell me about them, I guess. Yours and where you can see some improvements for yourself, right? For keeping that rust off, or maybe where you can save money instead.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started out with trying out sim racing, I just went kind of cheap, as cheap as possible, kind of entry level. And it's definitely, I mean, you can get most of the kind of experience and most of the kind of effects of doing the sim racing with a kind of a budget setup. So I was just using like a Logitech G25 steering wheel and pedals, and they work great. I used iRacing, and then I just mounted it all to my desk and just used my regular desk chair, and it all worked. It wasn't ideal. Kind of the biggest things that I felt needed to be improved was braking, because usually the cheaper pedal sets use a linear potentiometer to I guess give the game brake feedback versus a load cell in the more expensive ones, which kind of gives you when you press the brakes, it's not really dependent on the position of the pedal. It's it's about the pressure that you're putting into the pedal. So
which is what you'd be looking for in real life. It was always right.
Yeah. So it's really hard. It was really hard for me to kind of adjust to that, because it didn't. My brain didn't really think that way when using that kind of pedal. You definitely could. You can learn it. Once you do it enough times, it'll still become kind of muscle memory, although it's position based instead of force based. So I think the muscles are a little better at forces than positions. But
right.
But yeah, I mean, for several years, I mainly used it for kind of learning new tracks, since when I'm first starting out, there's not really any tracks that I knew. So every time before an event, especially in ones that have limited kind of practice or testing time, if any, I would like to, try out the tracks and get kind of a first look at it from, kind of the eyes from the driver's seat. Although it's, not perfect and everything, and it's not the same exact car, of course, but it really helps to get a look at the track. But yeah, this off season, I decided I wanted to kind of invest heavily into a nicer sim rig setup, so that in in the off season I could do more actual racing than just kind of lapping and practicing new tracks. So yeah, I went a lot. I unfortunately, because of the setup and how kind of complicated it was, it took basically most of the off season to finish it.
Yeah.
But now it's ready. Now it's ready for next season. So yeah, I went to a kind of more actual standalone kind of chassis, so I can mount everything and be solid and have a nice kind of seat in there to make it feel more realistic. I went with a nicer set of pedals with a load cell brake pedal. I went with a direct drive steering wheel, which just it can apply a lot higher forces than my old wheel, probably like I think like 10 times more or something along
that's
those
pretty
lines.
nice.
So
Yeah.
quite a bit more feedback. So if you're trying to drive a car that doesn't have power steering in real life, then it's kind of a better kind of simulation of that. Doesn't necessarily make you faster in the sim game, but I think it makes it just more realistic. So ultimately, I went for as realistic as possible. So I also added it's called a butt kicker. So it basically it's just a speaker that shakes the rig when you're going over curbs and stuff, because I just wanted as much feeling and everything as possible. And then to top it all off, I got a VR headset to try to really bring home the realism. So I mean, all of that isn't necessary. I think it definitely isn't necessary for trying like iRacing or Assetto Corsa or any sort of competitive online racing. But for me, it was trying to make it as realistic as possible, make it as fun as possible, so I could enjoy doing it for hours and hours on end, basically. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's definitely a good way to, good way to practice over the off season, since, most, especially in Michigan here, all tracks are closed till April, basically first week of April. So, and as early as October. So there's a pretty big off season here. So
Yeah.
outside of traveling down south, there's really no racing you can do other than, which we'll talk about in a little bit, indoor karting, as well as other forms of indoor racing. But kind of staying on sim racing. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple main benefits. One is, of course, learning tracks you don't know or practicing them. I think that's one area. Of course, it's never going to be exactly applicable because you don't have all those G forces and everything that you can have in real life. But I found it definitely helps. I mean, one story I don't know if I've told on here, but I've definitely told to friends and everything that are curious about like iRacing and stuff. But my first ever race was at the VIR 24 with Champ Car, or I guess Chump Car at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd driven the car. It was the GWR E30. I'd driven it at some track days and stuff, but never wheel to wheel. And we went to VIR, and it was my first time there as well. So I did a ton of iRacing leading up to it. A couple weeks of it, like kind of every night. And when I went out there, I was able to, at least for the first few drivers, set the fastest lap, even though I don't think they had been there either. So that's
Yeah, but I mean, even if they haven't been there, that illustrates that you're ahead of people who didn't do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So ultimately, I didn't set the fastest for the car, but the first couple of stints, I was holding the fastest lap, so I was pretty proud of that. And yeah, I felt there was a lot of corners where I was like, okay, I know I can. In the sim in iRacing, I knew I could take this corner flat, or I didn't have to brake through this one. I could just lift, or roughly understanding what gears I would need to be in.
Mm-hmm.
It was really helpful to just trust that I was able to do it in the video game with similar kind of grip and similar, basically the MX-5 Cup car in there was running very similar lap times to what we were expecting. So I knew that everything would be pretty close as far as between that and real life. So it just helped me see, like, okay, through here, like I said, I could be flat. I can, I need not necessarily like, some areas were definitely was very car specific was like brake zones and brake markers,
Right.
things like that. But as far as just general knowing how much speed I could carry, and and some of the corners are blind and everything, just knowing, kind of setting up your reference points ahead of time definitely helped.
Yeah.
So it helped. It really helped get me not have to worry as much about learning the track as much as learning to drive around other people and not have any incidents and anything like that. So,
Which is another valuable skill.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of leads to my, I think, next pro of iRacing is that I think it can help with racecraft. It's definitely still going to be, it's definitely going to still be more beneficial to do more real life racing. Like, one real life race versus one sim race isn't going to be equivalent for kind of expanding your racecraft, but I think anything helps, because part of racecraft for me is knowing how your car operates offline, because that's usually where you're going to need to make a pass. But then there's also just the knowing where to put your car in order to try to make that pass. And I think that portion of it, the latter there is definitely could be learned in sim racing.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think that's the other, I guess, major benefit. And then overall, I guess if you're just looking to relax after a long day, you could, watch YouTubes, or
Right.
you could play Call of Duty or whatever, or whatever, Xbox or PlayStation. But I don't know, if you could also do sim racing, and I think, it's ever so slightly more productive if you're looking to hone your racing. So it's a fun way to pass the time, and can also be beneficial. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's nice to be able to try new things, and if you screw up, you just hit the reset button, right? You didn't wad up a car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the racecraft is big. And I guess my personal, something I didn't like about them previously, I've since seen the light, is you obviously don't feel the outside world, right? There's there's just no acceleration, right? So I didn't really like that, and then I've driven a few sim rigs where either the setup keeps changing, or I just didn't like it. You know what I mean? So whatever they're using to control the steering and that lag, wasn't great. And I guess most of the pedals I've used are position based, right? Like you had mentioned before. So there's none of that, quote unquote, like feedback through the road. But
Yeah.
after using some rigs I liked, good ones, very fancy ones, right? Like I've been in the pro drivers, multi-million-dollar sim rigs, which is sweet. Those are the greatest. But seeing as everybody can't afford to have one of those in their basement, just good rigs in general, like yours. I learned, I guess I'm just trying to think of how to phrase this, but I've learned to like them simply because using them, I learned that we rely on our eyes a lot more than you kind of expect. You know what I mean? For driving. I know that sounds kind of silly or kind of stupid because, people always say vision, 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 and you're supposed to be looking through to the next corner. And so we know that eyes are important, but most people, myself included, think that when you're driving a car, a lot of what you're doing is based off of feedback through like the seat, right? You can feel the outside acceleration on your body. But I think surprisingly a lot more of your driving is based off of visual cues, right? Sort of like a yaw rate you can see, versus what you might expect. I think it's just a surprising amount. or more than I expected. So now, I mean, I think they're great. You know, any sort of practice like that helps. So
Yeah, and I guess when I went in with this sim rig, part of the justification for me is, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of money. Like maybe I could buy like a caged Miata or something for the same price of it. Not a full spec Miata. You know, you got the spec Miata tax on those, but you know, like you get like a someone's track project car and then go out and race it for less. But you know, the way I looked at it is, I mean, this thing runs on, you know, relatively cheap electricity. You know, there's no tires and gas or anything else, and
right.
really low to no maintenance. And
Yep.
and yeah, I can get hours and hours of racing, although it's not the real thing, but I can get hours and hours of it, and really overall the cost is quite low over time.
Right. And just how we started this, when your off season is October through April, that's, you know, however many months that is. 6, I don't know. More than that. But yeah, that's time you, otherwise, if you had bought a cage Miata instead, you wouldn't have been practicing. So
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and then every time your car breaks or you lose track time there, you know, that's can be expensive, and waste your time a bit too. So
Right.
yeah, there's definitely, you know, I wouldn't suggest just completely, I guess. I mean, you could just do sim racing and no real racing, but you know, I think all of us, you know, on the Motorsports Tech Talk podcast here, where obviously we love racing, so it's
Yeah.
it's just a good way to get more of it. It's just definitely a different type, but every year I feel like it gets better. I mean, definitely a big explosion in popularity in the last year due to COVID, but yeah, I mean, it's getting very popular, and they're always going to keep making improvements, more tracks, more cars available on them, and the hardware keeps getting better. So yeah, I mean, maybe one day we'll be able to get, you know, relatively inexpensively. I don't know. It's still kind of a luxury item, but you know, getting full like motion rigs, you're not going to still get the full G forces, but it'll help, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, God, I love those things. But yeah, they do. If we want to, we probably don't want to get too deep into that. But yeah, they do some weird things to like simulate G-force, but there's some things they can't do, right?
Yeah.
Because unlike flight simulators, though I don't expect most of our listeners have been in, you know, actual legit training simulators for that either. You're constrained to the ground, so there's just things you can't do. You can't simulate the same way. But I guess moving towards things that are more realistic, right? Something you'll definitely hear a lot too is go-karting. And there's sort of two methods you could do for that. You can just go to a generic go-kart place, right? And I'm not talking about the carnival style, you know, 5 mile an hour carts. I'm talking about, you know, the ones that have a whopping 5 horsepower maybe, but they're 30 miles an hour instead of 5, so watch out.
Yeah.
But you can go to those. And this is definitely real, right? You're driving a cart. Though you will see some places, like sometimes they don't maintain their carts, or they don't do all of them to the same level. So if you're going with friends, you know, you might get your ego hurt and blame it on the cart. Because, I mean, it's definitely the cart's fault. 100% of the time. There are some places that do better maintenance or more universal maintenance. You can find ice or electric carts. But I would say these places where you rent the cart are the next step up, you know?
Yeah, no, it's crazy that every time I go to those places, every cart I get into it is a slow cart, and every cart that everyone else gets into is a fast one. It's just
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's bullshit, dude.
I don't know how that's possible, but it's definitely possible. It's 100%
Well,
possible.
it's happening, right? The man is holding you back.
Yeah, I know. It's just yeah. Every time I was like, oh, they got the fast one, so I jump in it, but they probably messed with it before I got in it, so
Yeah, yeah,
or they wore out the tires, or
it's
you know.
something for sure. Yeah, those tires that are
Yeah.
designed to wear as little as possible, pretty much, on their
Yep. Well,
polished
they.
concrete floor generally.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
They just wore them down, dude. They too many heat cycles. It's just one too many.
yeah, yeah. I have seen someone. I don't know if this is a common thing, but what I saw was the throttle that's on those carts. Apparently, will only open the actual throttle. I don't know, 95% of the way. So I did see someone who was a hobby of his at some point. He would just reach back and open the throttle all the way by hand. So he pretty much had that NOS in the straights, did. So much more power.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, I mean, karting's a blast, and it can be indoors, so the weather, you don't have to have weather permitting to be able to do it.
mm-hmm.
So that's nice, and yeah, again, another fun thing to do with your friends.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
it's a great time.
to take it to the next, yeah, to take it to the next level, you could get your own cart, or join a league or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So once we talk about getting your own cart, that makes it more legit, right? There's multiple classes, and we can talk about those carts in a second. But I guess just to start, I don't know of any place that universally nearby, at least to us, will let you come in and drive your own cart on their cart track. I know one place that sponsors a guy who races karts a lot, so they let him practice on their track. But if you owned a car, you could not go there. So for the most part, at least in our area, and I think it's not universal, but I think you're going to be hard pressed to find places that'll let you bring your cart inside, which really means you need to be able to go down south, right? The good news is with a cart, it's easy. You get a truck, throw it in the bed of a truck, and you drive on down. So yeah, it's not hard. And then, the truck rental is $40 a day or whatever. So you don't need to have a truck. But obviously now we're starting to talk about those expenses that we were so easily able to write off with sim racing, and for the most part don't exist, or at least not to the same level with renting a cart, right? Now you're traveling to a track, so you still have the transportation costs, maybe a hotel, right? In this case, we're talking about the cold off season, so you're probably not going to camp anywhere. Now you're burning through your own engine in terms of engine hours, your own tires, your own brakes, right? So it's all getting very real again. So I guess the easiest way to mitigate that is to get a slow cart, right? They do have carts that you can own that are pretty much the same as what you'd rent. They're substantially lighter, but it's the same engine. So it's a Briggs that needs almost no maintenance. You just pull on the handle and you got 5 horsepower. It probably drinks 2 ounces of gas an hour, Yeah. And because it's so slow, it doesn't really chew through tires. So you can start with a cheaper cart. It's an L206 is what I'm talking about. Then you can also get all the way up to some pretty fancy carts, right?
Yeah. I guess real quick to go back to, the local karting places and talking about like those leagues and stuff. So yeah, a lot of those, you're using their carts, right? But at least you can set something up where maybe once a week, once a month, that you're doing a league, racing other people, and then you're doing it on someone on the place you're going to on their cart. So then you don't have to worry about that maintenance and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be a good kind of starting point. But of course, like we said, like the carts can be a little inconsistent, and then you're just going to one place over and over. But it's still good. I think it's still useful. And
oh yeah, it's certainly still valuable. Just not quite as awesome.
yeah, it's definitely it's a good intermediate step before you have to start going crazy with investing and stuff, and traveling as far. So, but but if you're, I guess, up north like we are, the limitation does become the weather. So yeah, you have to start looking at going down south. So like you said, there you can start in those entry level classes that just use Briggs engines, pretty simple, relatively cheap carts, cheap to run, and yeah, and then you can start moving up to the bigger boys, like you just skipped right up there.
Yeah, I did. I'll say recently because it was at the end of last season. But that also means it's been like 6 months. But I recently bought an X30, which is like top of the tier for the single speed carts. So yeah, I don't know. It's sweet. So the Briggs, you start with like 5 horsepower and it's a 4-stroke, and you move up. And this is like a pretty strung out 2-stroke, right? And it's dope, first of all. But,
like 20, what was it, like 25 horsepower or something?
yeah, mine's supposed to be like super built. From a guy who builds X30s competitively at the national level. I bought it from one of those guys, so I might have like 30. I'm going to just say 30 because that's what I want to believe. It may not be, but certainly might not be after we just beat the piss out of it. Not on track, just trying to tune the carb and revving up to 16,000 RPM. Which is awesome for a single cylinder, by the way. But
oh yeah, that was sweet.
But yeah, I mean, so I bought this cart because one of the pro drivers I know convinced me to do it. This is what he has for practice in the off season, and this is actually what a lot of pro drivers use for practice in the off season. So. And even during the season, if there's a break, like right after Sebring, there'll be a bit of a break. They use these carts to stay fresh. So, just to summarize real quick, we've gone from like a cart that you can use to try to stay sharp, but it's all low grip situation, whatever, to pros compete in carts, right? So there's a vast array of carts and types that you can get. But anyways, I mean, it's a 2-stroke liquid cooled, but depending on who you talk to, right, it pulls a lot of lateral G's. Everybody says it's a lot, but just like the power ratings we mentioned earlier, some people just get exaggerated, or they get excited and they exaggerate how much it can do. I've heard 2.5, but in all honesty, if you're not in the Formula car, it is the most lateral acceleration anybody will get. Far more than a sports car. So
and longitudinal too, at least acceleration wise. Not as much braking with just rear brakes, but although some do have the front brakes now.
Yep, yeah, you can get them with front brakes. Sometimes the track will make you add ballast, to quote, even that playing field. But yeah, so the definitely accelerates quickly. And so one of the things that the driver who I was talking to, who convinced me to buy it, was telling me is, this was right after well, I don't want to say after Corona because it's still a thing, but it was right after they let professional sports teams go back, you know? So most people think football, but that includes racing, right? And this was the most amount of time anybody in the paddocks ever had off from racing since they started. You know, even the people who've been doing it for their whole life, they're in their 50s, right? So, I mean, I feel like that says something, right? The longest off period ever. And this driver who was, you know, practicing in his X30 said he came back feeling the most prepared he's ever been, right? So I think that says a lot. And, you know, if you talk to him about it, he also mentions how quickly everything happens. You know, and this is specific more to the X30, right? Not the slower karts. But that's both on track because your speed's relatively high, but also the way the car reacts, right? Karts don't have suspension, obviously. So the inputs are much more direct, and you need to be able to react to it a lot faster. So, you know, everything, you know, especially compared to sports car racing, everything happens so much faster. You're in an even better spot, you know, when you go back. So yeah, I mean, those pretty much convinced me. And then something else I hadn't thought about until you and I took my kart out is especially with these two strokes, they really teach you to maintain that minimum corner speed. I mean, you can attest. It felt like there was absolutely nothing until you got into the power band, and then all of a sudden you're there. But, you know, if you screw up, or in our case, I mean, we were driving around on old, you know, scuffed in slick Hoosiers in the wet. So, you know,
Yeah.
maybe it's not completely due to a lack of ability in our case because we're so great. But I mean, yeah, you can attest. You know, you're going too slow, and there's nothing there. So I feel like the kart also really teaches you to corner speed.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, like, I mean, karts are like the closest you can get to full-on race car power to weight and everything. Like, if you run the numbers, basically, an X30 has the same power to weight as a GT3 car, and so you know it's a great practice for that, like feeling those forces and being able to react quickly, you know, at those higher speeds and everything. It's definitely really good training. Another thing I noticed from it is just as far as just strength training, or like having good cardio and physical strength and everything is definitely needed for those karts, because they don't, I mean, it's very basic steering, manual steering, and everything's just you're just getting flung around in that thing. And if you're like in our case where the seat wasn't really fitted to either of us,
it was a thick boy seat from the guy I bought it from.
Yeah, it was a big boy seat for sure. And and so, you know, we were just kind of getting thrown around. We had to hold on as much as we were just you know, just trying to drive the thing. So but yeah, I mean, like the forces, the speed, the reaction time you need to have to you know, counter steering and everything, and it's all kind of, like you said, it's way cheaper than, say, getting a Formula car or a GT3 car, but being able to feel those forces. And
yeah, I mean, it's,
you know, we talk about you know, we talk about, like, you know, Miatas being light and feeling so much better than most cars, but like try comparing a, you know, 2,400 pound with you in it Miata to what was it, like 350 pounds with you in it kart.
Yeah, I don't think is that the way with me in it? It's got to be.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. Me either. But I don't know. It's not heavy. I can pick it up. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So like that's a whole nother level of kind of, of steering feel and kind of direct feedback from the road, because you're touching, your butt is literally touching the road.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are You buy frame savers, which are plastic things that go on the bottom because your frame's scraping so often. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and it's not just a bargain compared to a GT3 car, which most people can't afford. It's a bargain for normal racing, right? So I can get a set of slicks. Tires are about $60 a piece. So it's a full set, and they're real slicks, right? Some people in our audience might be able to tell this, but the slicks you buy for like Spec Miata are not the same quality as Michelin race slicks, right? Or Pirelli race slicks. What they have in these Pro Series, they're just not to the same caliber. I know that by looking at data from the race car and comparing it, right? I personally have not driven on both, just full disclosure. But data says that they're vastly different. And I'm sure you can say that, you know, those Hoosier slicks and maybe to a lesser extent your NASA boys are supremely better than most 200 treadwear tires, right? So, I mean, my consumables are a couple gallons of gas, and if I burn through my tires, which you don't do in a single weekend, $200 in tires. So it's a deal.
Yeah.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, and it's still super fun, like all racing, and you know, and there's a reason why all the big Formula and Pro factory racer guys, they came up through karts, because I mean, one, it's the easiest way to get into as a young lad, but also it's relatively affordable compared to everything else, and you get to learn really how to race at a really high level without going too crazy with costs and you know, in your own time and everything. It's easier to transport. It's just it's definitely a good way to learn, and
Yeah.
it's definitely easier to do that in the off season than try to find a track down south. You can, if you can find something place local. I mean, even some places around here, even the outdoor ones will run relatively late into the season. As long as it's not snowing or anything, they'll be there. It's just going to be a little chilly.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot easier than trailering a car out somewhere and spending a lot more on consumables and everything. So, yeah, it's definitely a good way to go.
Yeah. And I guess on the note of using it to learn, right, I would caution anybody, if you're going to just go from zero to a big boy kart like what I did, maybe get a Rotax if you want, right? Not as common as the X30, or I guess not as popular for actual racing as the X30, but feel free to stay in that 125cc two-stroke class, but maybe don't jump for front brakes and a shifter right away, right? So shifter karts, or some of them do still use an X30 engine, right? So you might think you're just, making it faster, which you are, but in terms of a learning tool, you kind of diminish it when you add these other things. Certainly they add more performance, right? They definitely do, but they're also sort of crutches. When you only have that rear brake, it's much more sensitive. You're not going to be able to brake as hard, obviously, but it's much more sensitive to that transition and control going through the corner. And on a similar note, if you have the transmission, for a shifter kart, it can hurt that forced learning progress we were talking about with the minimum corner speed, right? You screw up and you just shift down a gear. It doesn't really punish you as much. So, if you're going to go wild, maybe just don't go directly to the most expensive, It'll help you learn, I guess is what I'm saying.
yeah, I mean, just go within your means.
Hmm.
Plan it out ahead of time. So, because yeah, if you get one of those super fancy shifter carts and something breaks and then now you can't afford to race it for a few months, then it kind of eliminates the purpose.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, just plan to have some spares on hand, be able to fix or afford to fix anything that happens, and yeah, have some fun racing maybe all year round, and keep those racing tools sharp.
Yeah. No, it's totally agree. And think of it as just a nice uh, escape from this weather, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
this driving south is assuming you're in the north, right? To drive south. So, not only do you get to go race, but you get to enjoy a much nicer weekend, where it's warm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then I guess in the topic of traveling for racing, I guess real quick, I'd like to go into kind of what my preferred method was, at least last year, and that was arrive and drive for specifically Champ Car. I mean, obviously, the best way to keep sharp in racing is to keep racing. So in this case, I was able to meet a lot of different teams through the couple of years I was racing with GWR, and at least at least get somewhat of a reputation that I'm able to drive quick enough and keep the car in one piece, and just start talking around. And yeah, I was able to do a lot of races. I did Sebring. I did in the past I've done VIR North. Just being able to have some people that you trust that can put a good car together, and aren't going to charge you too much, and yeah, you can rent from them, fly down for a weekend, go racing, and fly back. It's definitely a pretty nice way to do it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we talk about our race season being short, but, the series of the race all around, race for most of the year. And, yeah, you can fly down to Florida and actually do exactly what we're talking about practicing for. But since you're doing it, it's probably the most
Yep.
applicable practice you can get. So, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, and again, that's more about it's about meeting people and making good connections, and being able to race with people you know or trust, and yeah, I mean, if you're new to it and you're trying to get into it, it might be a little more difficult. But I mean, the place to start would be kind of all the different Facebook pages for Champ Car, WRL, AER, all those types of series. You can also look at their forums, their specific forums. They usually have kind of a putting people together type page where people will post seats that they have available, as well as people looking for seats. So that's going to be your best place to start. Of course, that can be the most risky, because you could be racing with people that you don't know, and maybe no one else knows them, and you don't know what you're getting into. So
Yeah, they might be
it's just
slow.
yeah, they might be very slow, but that's more my always concern is the car going to run the whole time? So
Right.
because you can't get seat time if the car's not running. So it can be frustrating to fly somewhere and not get really any time. So so because of that, I think I'd more recommend sim racing, karting, those kind of things that you can be in control of. But it's still definitely another option. And it worked out for me, at least last year. I didn't do too much this off season. I didn't travel too much. Since I did a full Spec Miata season last year, and I'm going to do a full season this year, I kind of focused my budget on that instead of kind of adding extra arrive and drive. So, yeah, I think it's just another. It's definitely another method, especially obviously if you live in colder climates that all the tracks are closed. Just find your way to the warmer climates, and like champ car races. I mean, their off season's really like a month because they race in December, like all the way to the end of December, and then for first race in the next year's usually or always Road Atlanta, which is like the first week of February. So
Yeah.
really no off season there. So yeah, I mean, I know Lemons runs all over, and I'm not sure about WRL and AR as far as how late they go, but and how soon they start. But I think there was just a WRL race recently, so.
I think so.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's just there's everyone's schedules kind of overlap, and you can usually find some place to race almost every weekend over the year. So that's of course a very good way to do it. Nothing like racing to get better at racing. So
That's right.
but I guess another method that you recently picked up and we talked about a little bit is, at least this is kind of the karting of the biking world.
Yes.
But yeah, mini bikes.
Yeah, dude. Indoor mini moto. So I completely agree. It's the karting of the bikes. Locally, but I've actually seen places that do this around the States. So, if you're not in Michigan, don't worry. There might be something near you. But it's the competitive underground world of racing 50cc children's motorcycles on indoor kart tracks. And it's fantastic. Similar to what we mentioned before with those indoor kart tracks, it's like polished concrete. They don't really have much grip. They don't care about you having grip, right? They're just trying to save for their tires. But yeah, it's a great learning tool. It's a fun way to stay active in the off season, and it's cheap, right? So, children, you just buy a children's, dirt bike. It'd be if it was a full size bike, people would probably call it supermoto, but mini moto, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and in most of these places you can go up to 150cc indoors, but at least locally the racing, because we do endurance racing on these things, is only 50cc bikes. So that's what you buy, a few $100, and you just put some bigger bars on it, so someone who's taller than 3'7" can fit on it. Put in the springs, some stiffer springs, so you don't bottom it out, because that's not good. And then go have fun. So yeah, I mean, it just like karts. Yeah, I know I already said this, but it's a good learning tool. It's a great time. And I think anytime you have a low grip surface, it's a great time to learn. So this even goes to like racing in the rain, potentially during the summer is, you just have to be more sensitive. You have to be smoother. And, yeah, I mean, it just forces that, you will be slower, but, it's easier to screw up. So, yeah, I don't know. I love, personally found these white wall tires that are dope. Put those on the bike. And I think it's the tire, but doing this for me it's so communicative. You're in the corner, you can feel exactly what it's doing, and you can try new things. No one cares. You're 3 inches off the ground. Go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to fall. Take that later line. Whatever. So it's, and it encourages trying new things. And yeah, I think it's a competitive world. So it's a fun time. And similar to those cheap carts, cheap, right? Like in that 3-hour endurance race, you don't go through a tank of gas, which last time I filled it up was $1.60. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it does look like a lot of fun. It's a little out of my wheelhouse. I'm not a biking. I mean, I will bicycle. I guess I can be a cyclist at times, but not a motorcyclist.
You got to try it, dude. I highly recommend.
I mean, yeah, I got to ride around my backyard. That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
And that was before it was in full race spec, so I'm sure it's
Yeah, that was
a whole
right
different
after I
animal
bought it.
now.
Yeah, dude. Right
Yeah.
now, you'd love it. Because I was going around your backyard. I was bottoming out that rear shock. I'm not really sure if it's a
Yeah.
real shock, but what happens when you do this is the internal of that shock becomes solid, and all your load goes through there, or that's your primary load path, and then the spring that you just compressed now unloads. If it was a real bike, I would have high-sided in your backyard, but it's a children's bike with like a 25-pound spring on it, so it was no event, but you can tell, you can feel these things happening. And yeah, dude,
Yeah.
you gotta try out full race spec. We got one more race / practice day this year, so come on out.
Maybe I'll think about it.
Good.
That's definitely fun watching and seeing you guys do it, and yeah, I mean it's because full on 600cc or whatever motorcycle racing, I'm sure is much more expensive than
Yes, it is.
a little mini moto. So
Surprisingly, I know, but yes, it is.
and maybe a little harder to just I'm gonna throw in the corner differently this time. Let's see what happens. Like,
Yeah. Also, yes. I realize that's not actually a shock, but yeah, man, I don't give a shit with the 50cc bike. What's the worst that's going to happen? Yeah, it's much more nerve wracking on the 600 to do something like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So
which is some of the fun,
yeah, it's
but it's also nice to relax. So,
yeah, no, and yeah, I mean you bring up a good point with the low mu or low grip surfaces. Just it really helps. Just like driving in the wet, it just helps kind of make everything more exaggerated, and it allows you to feel the limit without really going fast at all. So
right. I mean,
always
you had a pretty good practice day, where almost the whole day was in the wet. Like when you first bought that spec Miata, how would you say that
yeah,
that helped you prepare? Yes or no?
yeah, I mean I think it was a huge help. First, it let me feel the difference between kind of the I guess quote unquote slicks. I mean, while they are somewhat slick tires, they're not like a full race slick like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between the dry tires and the rain tires in kind of damp conditions, because it was at times it would rain a little hard, but when there was a lot of standing water, definitely the rain tire was the way to go. But once it kind of stopped raining and it was just kind of a damp track, it was really interesting to see which tire was the best. And I mean, what I learned there is that basically both of them were capable of the same lap time in a kind of a damp condition. It's just that the rain tire was just so much easier to drive on. It was way less edgy. Everything was kind of, you could be it allowed you to be a lot smoother, whereas the slick would just kind of break loose very unexpectedly and just make it a lot trickier to drive. But it let me know that if I see a little raining coming on the horizon, which, there were a couple races last year that were like that, to know that I can stay on the slicks if maybe I think the race will be half wet, half damp, or even just damp. Like there's no need to jump right to the rain tires.
Mm-hmm.
But then also it just let me feel out the car in the rain and feel limit really easily. I went off probably like 7 times or something, just playing around with it, finding the line. It really helped me learn Gingerman.
Yeah, you went off
more than I've ever seen it before.
At 6, a lot.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing I learned most about Gingerman is the difference in the grip between the different patches on there, different asphalt and like the new versus old, and I've noticed it in the dry, but I never put kind of two and two together until I was in the wet, and I could see like certain areas I was like there was so much grip, and then other areas it was like a driving on a sheet of ice. So
Yeah.
I mean, it helped me learn the track better and learn the rain line there. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it kind of culminated in my first win, which was a wet or kind of a dry to wet transition race, and it really helped kind of having that experience to get to know what to expect there and be able to drive the car to the win there without going off. So
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's awesome, right? Being able to correlate it to a win.
yeah, and then that weekend was really sweet. It was, of course, it was at Gingerman, greatest track in the world.
Oh yeah.
And I think they had someone cancel. Maybe there's like a private track day or something that weekend, and someone canceled on them, so they just opened it up to the public. But it was like last minute, like that week, like during the week. It was for the weekend, and of course the weather didn't look so good, and it was short notice. But I was like, let's do it. And so me and Eric, as well as one of my friends who also got a Spec Miata, we took the two cars out there, and we just basically had the whole track to ourselves. By Sunday, it was literally to myself. It was just me out there.
Yeah, there was one guy who brought his kid in a Spec 944, and his kid did like 2 laps. Otherwise, it was you solo all day, no run groups. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I forget, it was like $250 for the weekend or something, and
Yeah, and it was essentially
basically
a private
track rental.
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome.
So yeah, it was great, and honestly, I preferred it was in the rain, because I mean, at the end of the weekend, I had 0 tire wear, 0 brake wear. It didn't use nearly as much fuel as I was expecting, and I was still able to learn just as much as I would have, if not more, in the dry. So I guess, obviously you can't just you can't expect the weather to just always cooperate with you. If you feel like, today I feel like driving in the rain. But I think it's the moral of this story is, when it does rain, don't just leave, or don't just,
Yeah,
cancel your weekend or whatever. Go out there and figure it out.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people, most of the paddock normally will pack it up when it rains. If it's not a race, right? If it's some sort of generic event or track day, right? People just start leaving. And that's, I mean, it's excellent practice, I've heard of, I guess you should also understand the limits of your abilities, right? So when you'll be in the rain, things will be much slower. This is why we're saying it's a great learning time. But if you brought out your brand new Supra for a track day, and maybe it's your second track day and it's raining, maybe don't bin your $50,000 car, right? But if you show up with, a race car, or really, I say every time you go to the track, you should be willing to write off what you're driving. And as long as you are, that's rain or shine, right? So if you're willing to write it off in the rain or in the shine, don't pack it up when it's raining, because you'll get this fantastic learning experience.
Yeah, and of course, make sure you bring some rain tires with you. I wouldn't want to go out on full slicks and it's downpouring. Like that's just dangerous.
Yeah,
You're not really going to learn anything, because you're just going to be pirouetting down the straights. But yeah, I mean, as long as you have tires with any tread on them, and yeah, you're willing to work your way up to it, take it easy. Don't just go crazy in the first lap. Just feel it out, and yeah, it can be great. And so I guess, to wrap it into another kind of off-season tip is, unfortunately, it's not as possible here, but any sort of off-season test days, practice days, track days, of course, is always going to be beneficial too. Obviously it lets you maybe do some setup work on the car and upgrades and that kind of thing, but then also keeps you keeps you moving, keeps you driving. So again, just always good ways. Unfortunately, just not really accessible to us here in Michigan. But
Right. But what is acceptable to us is other types of competition that would still go on. So,
mhm.
yeah, I think the most applicable things we've already talked about, right? But in a much broader sense, generally, you can read a lot of articles that say the same thing, but it's because it's pretty true. Cross training helps with your primary goal or hobby, whatever you're doing, right? So if you really like endurance racing, that's your thing. You're all about trying to get the national champ car, title. Don't be afraid to go rallycross, right? Yes, it's not what you normally do, but it teaches you a whole different type of car control.
Mhm.
And you're still in four wheels and a steering wheel, gas, brake pedal, maybe a clutch, right? It's still the same machine. You're just learning different things about it. And I think cross training isn't something that should be entirely ignored, right? So if you like bikes, go dirt biking or supermoto, mini moto, right, which we talked about, but ice racing, and then on cars, they also have ice racing.
Yeah.
So that is something you can do up here. But yeah, because rallycross doesn't give a shit about the, surface. I see them running in the winter. Go try that.
Yeah, even I think I've seen even autocrossing can go most of the season. That can be helpful too. Rallycross, rally, full on rally. I think they basically go all year round.
Yeah.
That starts to get again. That's another big investment too if you're getting into that. But it's definitely a good idea though to think like, oh, maybe I should build. I want to spec Miata and I want a champ car and I want this, but maybe start thinking about, well, if I had like a spec Miata and a rally car, maybe I could do the rally car kind of in the cold months and then the spec Miata in the warm months. So,
yeah. Then you're always having fun and synergy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess the other form of cross training, would be, I think that's also really important is just regular kind of cardio fitness training.
Absolutely.
Not even just off season, all season ideally, but off season is definitely where you need to focus and so you don't lose all those gains.
Yeah, cardio is also known as the ability to lose gains. So accept that if you're going to do a lot of cardio, but highly recommend it.
Especially.
Well, I was just gonna say I'm big into physical training in general, but you specifically, you were racing, and then during some period you started doing a lot more cardio, and then you were racing again, and you said that felt hugely different, right? So you have felt both, not much cardio and a lot of cardio. Just give us your rundown.
Yeah, I just got basically once the work from home stuff started, I knew since I looked at my step counter after like the first week and saw like every day I had like less than 1,000 steps because I literally just had to go from my bed to the office and back like
right.
and that's it. So I was like, oh geez, I need to start working out or else this is not going to go well. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, race season's about to get going, so it could really benefit me to get in shape, especially for endurance racing where you're doing 2-hour stints in a really hot car.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe doesn't have power steering. Like having just the ability to be able to do that can be obviously a big benefit. Because not your cool shirt isn't always going to work, or maybe the team you're running with doesn't have one. And it can get really hot in those cars, and if that's the case, you need to be ready for it. You don't want to have to bring the car in early just because you can't kind of take the heat. So,
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's
obviously
awful,
once
right?
you start fatiguing, yeah, once you start fatiguing, it can really slow you down. You're going to start missing your brake zones. Maybe even you could potentially lead to an incident just because you're not able to focus as well as you did when you're fresh. So, yeah, having good cardio, good fitness is definitely really important. So yeah, I mean, I started running and biking. I really enjoyed both. I found biking was a little, I guess, less painful as far as being able to do it long periods of time, and try to avoid injuries and everything. So I did a lot of biking and a lot of running. So I enjoyed kind of doing both. It allowed me to mix it up. But yeah, I was able
Yeah.
to lose some weight, which is always good for racing.
Right.
It's getting in Spec Miata, there's a min weight, so but I get to put the weight where I want it a little more instead of just on it in my belly.
Right. Yeah, you can throw it even lower in the car.
Yeah.
And as Carol Smith says,
So
the easiest weight to lose is off the driver. Tune to win,
exactly.
everybody.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's so there's that benefit there, but I think the main benefit is just having that kind of physical endurance, being able to perform in under high temperatures, high heart rates. Yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed the difference. Especially I don't have a cool shirt in the Miata at the moment. And yeah, there was a couple races where it was in the 90s, and although they're 25-minute races, it's still really hot in there. And my car's manual steering, so just wheeling it for 25 minutes was quite, especially when in Spec Miata, when when you need to be 10/10ths basically the whole race versus
Right.
endurance racing. You don't have to go crazy every lap. You just need to have consistent pace. So yeah, I mean, it was, I noticed it helped, and unfortunately I lost a little bit of that fitness over the winter. So I got to start working it back up for the season. But yeah, I mean, I think even off season as well as just all season, any season, it's good to really stay fit. I mean, and there's a reason why Formula One drivers are all definitely super fit. I know a lot of the kind of endurance pro racer guys. So, people that race at Le Mans, it seems like so many of them are into running marathons and triathlons and that kind of thing. They definitely
Yeah.
go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, they're all those guys are super athletes, or at least the drivers getting
Yeah.
paid are. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. And
I mean,
yeah, just being healthy is is usually beneficial for really everything in life. So it's no surprise it's helpful here too.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's generally a good thing. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, there's a few studies that point out a noticeable drop in your decision-making ability as you get fatigued. And then moving outside of racing, depending on how tired you are, like there's a few studies that say it can be as bad as driving drunk. I mean, that's obviously on the highway, but you don't want to start getting tired. Maybe you're missing brake zones. You certainly don't want to get to the point of, that level of fatigue on the racetrack.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you feel better, right? Because as you mentioned, it's a high heart rate sort of thing. Racing is, but you also make better decisions. You perform better, and even if you're fit, there's a measurable level of performance drop from when you start to when you finish, generally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's definitely key. And then if you're going to arrive and drive and you don't know how hard the car is going to be, you definitely want to be able to be ready for it. I can't think of anything worse than coming in and, if you were competitive, you're not anymore because you can't handle it, and you just let all your teammates down because you're not in good enough physical shape. I mean, that's pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
And then
No, definitely.
yeah, I mean, things you can prepare for, but you can't control, right? You know, my first day on track on a bike, it was like 112 degrees out. It was one of the hottest days of the summer. It was awful. I was literally dripping sweat by the time I got my big leather onesie on. And it sucked. You know, I wasn't going to go home, though, obviously. And so I went out on track. But, you know, the harder you push yourself, the quicker you get fatigued. And then here, it was the first time I was doing it. I'm going to say new muscle groups, whatever. And it was hot. You know, my helmet was soaked. I was blowing past brake zones and I came in. You know, supposedly the weekend before, when it was almost as hot, someone didn't come in and he passed out from, you know, exhaustion and just rode straight off past the corner into the Armco. So not a good weekend. So you want to make sure that you're always prepared for that, right? Whether it's going to be the car, maybe the AC brakes, you know, maybe it's your car and you have power steering and AC, and then it throws the accessory belt, you know, whatever it is, you want to be able to be ready for it. So yeah, I totally agree. Physical fitness is huge.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately I need to get back into it, but at least the first couple races will be a little more forgiving because cooler temperatures. But
right,
yeah, once the heat starts coming in, yeah, it's definitely, and even just without the heat, just it's a lot of work in those cars, and it just helps to be as close to your peak performance as possible. There's some strength training you can do too. I think at least for endurance racing, a lot of it is cardio, but I mean, as far as strength, I mean, neck strength is important, although, not as important as like a Formula One car.
Yeah, where they're crunching walnuts with their neck.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at least maybe you could do something there. Maybe not as important, but, and then, arm, I think leg strength, maybe not super important. I think most people can need to push a brake pedal hard enough to get the level of braking they need. Maybe more just maybe some arm exercises could help, especially for those non-power steering cars.
Most of the time I hear people complaining about their forearms before their legs. So,
Yeah. So
maybe if you climb a
otherwise,
bunch,
I think
worry about your brake, but otherwise the forearms are the first thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of a good place to wrap up. Yeah, if any of you people out there listening, if you have any suggestions or things that you like to do, hit us up on our Facebook or our Instagram at Motorsports Tech Talk. We'd love to hear from you. If there's anything we missed or things that you like to do, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to learn.
Absolutely.
And of course, it's also the best place to see when new episodes come out and everything. The other way is to follow us on the various podcasting networks, Spotify, iTunes. I think we're on Google as well. There's one or two others. But yeah, if you can follow us there, then you'll get the most recent episode every time we put it out there. So, yeah, but as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
See ya.